KMU broke into national NBC programming twice.
I also checked Expedia.com to compare rates of hotels in downtown Dallas versus here in Arlington, closer to the stadium.
In a study done by the Natural Resources Defense Council and Harvard Law School, researchers found that 90% of Americans take their food out and toss it prematurely because they misinterpret food labels as indicators of food safety.
Here in North Dallas, this 42-year-old Mexican restaurant is home to the idea behind the first ever frozen blended margarita.
You heard from me about 15 minutes ago talking about the LED sign at the end of East Prathersville Road. Well, now, as you can see, the sign is back on.
Here in downtown Dallas, crowds of people are celebrating New Year's Eve. Now, just one block west of me is one of the largest New Year's Eve celebrations in the nation, Big D NYE.
Hours after a fire killed a father and destroyed a family home, a community is pitching in to help. In less than a year, the first mid-Missouri H&M will fill about 20,000 square feet in the Columbia Mall behind me. Tickets did start on Expedia.com out of St. Louis at about $340 round trip. Tickets out of Kansas City were about $240 round trip. Let's roll. Those two words were heard around the world following the September 11th terrorist attacks. Today, the father of the man who said them spoke in Jefferson City about the hero behind those words. Healthy choices make for a healthier you. But what if with every choice, both unhealthy and healthy, you could turn certain genes on and off? Dr. Alfredo Galvez says they do.
If your lifestyle is not good, if you're eating unhealthy food and you live a sedentary lifestyle, you smoke, and you expose yourself to a lot of stress, that will actually change your epigenome so that some of those genes that are good for you are silenced.
That word he used is epigenome, referring to a part of a field called epigenetics. This area of research says healthy lifestyle choices like exercise turn good genes on, and unhealthy lifestyle choices turn bad genes on. Picture your DNA as these two black lines written in permanent ink, determining things like eye color and shoe size. Now pretend that I decide to eat fast food every day, creating epigenetic marks on the DNA strand. Now, Dr. Galvez thinks he's found a way to erase those marks and reverse the problems. Galvez's solution is the peptide lunasin, extracted from soybeans. Galvez says if we consume lunasin, it will be the switch to turn those genes off. But how do we know it doesn't turn off good genes, not just the bad ones?
You could get a mixed effect in the sense you could be silencing good genes that are there to help prevent cancers and other diseases. And likewise, you could be also then turning on bad genes that might lead to negative consequences.
Even with that possible loss of good habits, Rosenfeld says there is another plus. These potential changes made to your DNA do pass from generation to generation.
If a chemical or compound, or like tobacco smoke, causes an epigenetic change, that can affect both you and your children, but more often, so it can also, additionally, it can affect your grandchildren and great-grandchildren, essentially what we call a transgenerational effect.
There are around 60 other articles on lunasin-related research with mixed reviews from around the country. But the first researcher to discover its possibilities is overseeing work right off the highway in Mexico, Missouri. Brynne Whittaker, KMU 8 News, Mexico. Expiration dates, sell-by dates, and best-by dates all mean different things. For some consumers, the fear of eating expired food means they throw away food that's perfectly fine to eat.
I've seen customers, when I worked in a produce department at Walmart, I've seen customers not get something because it was 2 days before its expiration date and not buy it because of that.
In a study done by the Natural Resources Defense Council and Harvard Law School, researchers found that 90% of Americans take their food out and toss it prematurely because they misinterpret food labels as indicators of food safety. So I sat down with a food science professor at MU who says we shouldn't be so quick to throw out our food. In some cases, he says, things are still good a shockingly long time after the so-called expiration date.
If you have a can good, this one, in fact, where was the expiration date? 2007. 6 years past its so-called expiration date. I would have no problem opening this product and eating it. Simply because I look at this can, it's still nicely sealed, nothing bulging, seams are perfectly fine. This is a good product.
Ingolf went on to say expiration dates are guidelines, not rules, and that we have to know what we're reading on those labels. Best by dates mean the product will taste the best by that date listed, but is still safe at least for several days after. Sell by dates mean the store should try to have the product on the shelf or sold by that day, but again, the product is still safe following that date.
But for the most part, it's not so much about food safety, but more quality of the food. And so there are definitely, serious illnesses from those things, from eating something past the expiration date, but it's not necessarily very serious in the most cases.
To keep your food the longest, researchers recommend putting meat, poultry, and fish on the bottom shelf where the temperature is coldest, and keep those moderately perishable food like condiments in the side door where air is a bit warmer. Brynne Whittaker, KMU8 News, Columbia. Marla Clow doesn't teach an average lecture-style math course. For one Rockbridge Jr., a different style of teaching means more real-world problems and less memorization.
It works better for me where instead of giving a equation and having to memorize it and then just doing it repetition until it's beaten into you, then you do a lot more deriving of equations.
The class uses integrated mathematics, combining different topics in math such as algebra, geometry, and statistics. There are a few reasons why the Columbia School Board decided to phase out integrated mathematics, the most prominent one being low enrollment. Only 2% of Columbia high schoolers are enrolled in integrated mathematics, meaning out of these 50 chairs, only one would hold a student. That low enrollment could happen if students think integrated math looks too different.
So we all would like to see our scores change, but the problem seems to be inherent in the fact that there's a fear when what we do in classrooms changes.
The format of standardized testing could also be to blame.
Take the ACT, it's 60 questions in 60 minutes. It's about speed and repetition, whereas the integrated curriculum more is about thought-provoking questions that take a longer time, and you don't automatically have an answer in 30 seconds or 60 seconds.
So we should work like that. Work hard. Yeah.
But that MU study of 3,000 high school students around the nation shows integrated math works.
Students who studied from an integrated curriculum outperformed those who studied in a more traditional sequence of Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2.
But with Columbia ending integrated math by fall of 2015, students like Samuel Guernsey won't be able to take it anymore. Brynne Whittaker, KMU8 News, Columbia.